OK, leading for us this morning, the Prime Minister is set to face another showdown over Rwanda as the bill returns to the Commons today.
At least 60 Tory MPs have backed amendments to toughen the legislation to prevent European judges and human rights lawyers from blocking deportation flights.
Leading the rebels, former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick, in a direct challenge to the PM's authority, he told GBNews he would consider voting against the bill.
Certainly going to support the amendments. They're in my name and those of Bill Cash, and there's now 60 Conservative MPs backing them. I hope the government will move and produce amendments that create a bill that will actually work. If they won't, then I've been clear that I'm not going to support the bill, and I'll actively consider voting against it, because all that matters is what works, and I'm not going to support a bill that doesn't work.
Well, to make matters worse for Rishi Sunak, two deputy chairmen of the party, Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith, have announced that they would vote for the rebel amendments.
Brendan and I both agree with pretty much 90% of this Rwanda bill. We just feel that there's a few areas in the bill that could be strengthened to make sure that it's watertight. And let's not forget, we're less than a year away from a general election now. And the last thing I want over there is a Labour lot coming in and repealing the Rwanda scheme and opening the borders to 100,000 odd illegal migrants here, which they will do if they sign up to any EU sort of deal. So this is not about us rebelling. It's about us saying, you know what, the bill, most of it is satisfactory. We just need to beef it up a little bit to close all those loopholes and make sure that people can't come over here and break into our country and use spurious claims to get off the hook.
This is incredibly important, which is why you see not just Lee and I, but our colleagues as well, who we all have opinions on this bill, because we want to make it work. We want to see those planes take off. We just want to beef it up a bit.
And in a bid to stop that rebellion, the Prime Minister is planning to fast-track appeals against deportation by drafting in 150 judges and freeing up courtrooms. Good luck with that
well,
one.
Exactly. All sounds very easy, Olivia Utley.
We'll do that. Believe it when I see it. Right.
Well, that's a key point, I suppose, isn't it, Olivia Utley, that this boils down to trust. He's promising all of these solutions, but actually, do these rebels believe them?
Well, absolutely, Isabel. It is a question of trust. Essentially, the crux of the problem is that the Rwanda legislation declares that Rwanda is generally a safe country. But the rebels are worried that what will happen is that in specific circumstances, migrants will still be able to appeal to the European Court of Human Rights and other human rights lawyers in the UK and say that in their own personal circumstances, deportation to Rwanda will be unsafe. The Prime Minister has said time and time again that there are only very, very limited ways that a migrant could use that loophole. He says that the loophole will only sort of apply to those who are in the later stages of pregnancy or with a terminal illness that couldn't be treated in Rwanda. But essentially, the rebels just don't believe him. This is all a bit reminiscent of the final days of Theresa May's premiership, when she was promising all sorts about Brexit, but the rebels on her backbenches just didn't believe her. It's going to be fascinating to see what happens today and tomorrow, because at the moment it really looks like a very hard standoff indeed. The Prime Minister is saying that he will not agree to the amendments put forward by Bill Cash and Robert Jenrick, signed by 60 MPs, unless he can see legal proof that those amendments don't break international law. Meanwhile, quite a lot of the rebels are now saying on the record that they won't support the bill unless it is amended. And the rumour is that there are a few cabinet ministers who are actually on their side about this. We already know about these two deputy chairmen, our very own Lee Anderson and Brendan Clark-Smith. But there are rumours that Kemi Badenoch and Steve Barclay, big hitters within the cabinet, could also be prepared to vote for those amendments. Now, Rishi Sunak is looking at some sort of compromise here. He doesn't want to change the legislation, but he says that he will try and get around that problem of individual migrants going to the courts by and having their claims sort of going through a very, very long, drawn-out asylum process, which can take over a year to process a claim. He says that he'll fast-track those court cases by hiring 150 new judges and freeing up court space. Will that be enough to keep the rebels happy? My instinct is probably not. So what does the Prime Minister do? Does he tighten up the Rwanda legislation and risk a fight with the human rights courts, with the international courts and with the Lords? Or does he risk this fight with his own MPs and risk a battle of no confidence in the House of Commons?
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you very much indeed.